So thank you for joining this week's episode of What the Insurance. Episode 2 is going to be solely a discussion about HMO, one of the major medical plan options. Each week we'll discuss different subjects related to insurance, but I wanted to kick it off with discussions related to the major medical plan options because that's kind of the foundation of a lot of what we will be talking about in future episodes. So without further ado, I will go ahead and get started. Okay, so if you joined my video last week, you know I keep my notes right here, so I may glance down to remind me of the different bullet points I have in my outline. So here we go. HMO stands for Health Maintenance Organization. Health maintenance organization basically means that your health is maintained by your primary care doctor. Your primary care doctor is what we call insurance, your gatekeeper. Okay, so PCP, primary care provider, is required at the time of selecting the HMO plan. So when you opt for an HMO plan, you should be asked who your primary care provider is going to be because that's a requirement. And you have to make sure that primary care provider is in the network for your insurance. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. So your primary care provider should be your first point of contact anytime you need to have any type of medical services. So whenever you need to go see a specialist, or you may have to have a hospital stay or any test, you should be going to your primary care provider first, and they will write what we call a referral. Without a referral, there's a chance that your service may not be covered. So it's very important that you go to your primary care provider first when you're on the HMO plan. Like I said, if you want to see a specialist, you can't just go to the specialist of your choice. You have to go to your primary care provider first and then let them tell you a specialist in the network for what you need and to write you a referral for that. So let's talk about network. On the HMO plan, most HMO plans, if not all, require you to remain in the network for your services. Unlike with the PPO plan, where you have the luxury of going outside the network, even though it may cost more, but you still have the option to do that. On an HMO plan, you don't. So if you go outside of the network, everything will be covered, or everything will be your responsibility to pay. So if you go in the network, then you have a better chance of making sure that everything is covered. If you go out of the network, you don't have that opportunity, and you will be responsible for paying full price for every one of your services. In addition to a referral, you may also be required to get a prior authorization for certain services, like maybe surgery, for example. So it's important, again, that you go through your primary care provider and that you coordinate your care through them, and they'll let you know what you need a referral for and what you may need prior authorization for so that you can make sure that, again, your services are going to be covered. Okay, so we talked about HMO having only in-network benefits. However, what happens if you have an emergency situation? Are you required to check and see if that hospital is in a network? No. If it's a true emergency, go to the emergency room. Okay, with an HMO plan, usually the only benefit that's going to be covered in or out of network is going to be your emergency room services. But I said true emergency. So keep in mind, there may be situations where you can call your doctor's office, call your doctor's office and ask them for an emergency visit. Most doctor's offices have in their lineup of appointments, they have slots for emergency visits. If those have not all been taken up, then you can call your doctor's office and say, hey, I have an emergency situation. Can I come in? The other option you may have is urgent care. We'll talk more about urgent care a little bit later. You may have other options like virtual visits. So there's different things you can try before going to the emergency room. But if it's a true emergency, I like to tell people if your arm is hanging out of your socket, that's a true emergency. Then you want to go to the emergency room, and with an HMO, the emergency room would be covered in or out of network. But other services have to be in the network to be covered. So we'll talk about difference between emergency room, urgent care, virtual visits, all that fun stuff in a later episode, but just wanted to throw that out there that you do have other options outside of the emergency room, okay? So now we'll talk about the cost. Typically, you'll see that the HMO plan is the least expensive choice between the other plan options. Not all the time, but a lot of the time it is. Why, you may ask? Simple, economics, supply and demand. With an HMO, I told you that you're required to choose a primary care provider. So when you choose that primary care provider, they coordinate your care, which means they tell you where to go. And if they're telling you where to go, they're usually telling you where to go within their medical group, which means they can pretty much guarantee you're going to have to keep coming back to use those services. Unlike with the PPO, where you have the choice of going in or out of network, or you have the choice of going pretty much wherever you want to go without having to get a referral, they can't really guarantee that you're going to keep coming back. So those plans usually cost a little bit more. Your HMO plan is going to be probably your least expensive plan. Again, like I said, not all the time, but most of the time, that's going to be the choice you see. Typically, your HMO plan is made up of copays only, although recently the market has started to release plans, HMO plans with deductibles, so don't be alarmed if you see that deductible and coinsurance on your HMO plan. But most of the time, an HMO plan is made up of copays. We call that an insurance first dollar benefits. So that means when you go to your doctor's office visits, you're going to pretty much know what your cost is going to be. You're going to have a copay for your regular primary care visit. You'll have a copay for your specialist visit. You'll have a copay for hospital stays, things like that. And so that's a good way to help you budget and know, what your costs are going to be in advance. So true story, when I gave birth to my children, both my sons, at the time that I was pregnant, I was on an HMO with both of them. And if you're a mom, then you know this, being able to budget in advance when you're a mom and you're planning for being out on maternity leave and short-term disability and you're in your nesting stage, so you're building a nursery and all these different things, when you're a mom, that's important to be able to budget ahead of time and know how much your costs are going to be. So I liked having an HMO when I was planning for the birth of my children. But that's not to say that the HMO is always the best plan for you. In fact, I've had PPO. I'm currently on an HSA, and we'll talk about what those mean in future episodes as well. But this was just to kind of help you guys understand like how an HMO can benefit you, knowing that it may not be the best option for you, and it may not always be the one you choose, or it may not even always be available. So each plan has their benefits, and we'll, like I said, get into that later on in other episodes. Okay, so the other thing I want to cover in our short period of time here is prescription drugs, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about prescription drugs. Typically, your prescription drugs are going to be on a tier kind of structure, and they're going to have copays. That's not in every situation, but in most cases with an HMO, that's how it would be set up, with the generic being your least expensive tier. And I say that because it's very important that if you are not on like a specialty drug or something you have to take a specialty version of, try asking your doctor for the generic version of your prescription, especially if you're going in and it's like a one-time antibiotic or something like that. If you can get the generic version, you're going to pretty much pay the least amount of money out of pocket when you go to the pharmacy. You'll have the lowest copay for that. The other way to save money with prescription drugs is to opt for the home delivery or mail order program. So if you're on what we call a maintenance drug, meaning a routine drug you take at the same time every day or every week or every month, like your cholesterol meds or your blood pressure meds, those kinds of things, if you opt for the home delivery or mail order program, you can, in most cases, save money. So you'll spend less on a 90-day or 3-month supply of those prescriptions through the mail order program than you would if you went for a 90-day supply at a retail pharmacy. So that's another way to kind of save money with your prescription drugs. If you're on a maintenance drug or routine drug, try asking your doctor or your insurance company for information on the home delivery or mail order program. Okay, so that was quick. My time is up. That's kind of the high level overview of the different components of an HMO plan. There may be other components specific to your HMO plan. So you want to make sure you ask your HR department for a SBC, Summary of Benefits and Coverage, or a plan document or certificate booklet. Those for one or the other, because those things are going to help you understand the details specific to your plan options, your plan choices before you choose to join that plan. Okay, so next week, we will jump into the wonderful world of PPO, the next major medical plan option. I hope you guys join me. If you came in late or you missed any part of this video, or you want to share this with any of your family or friends, please feel free to check out my YouTube page. The link is in the description below. Like and subscribe to my YouTube page. I need some more subscribers. And I'll be posting all the archived videos there. Okay, so thank you guys for joining and have a great week.